these are the 4 levels of value that I discovered in Genesis chapter 1 many, many moons ago. Okay, so the lowest level of value is implementation. And so implementation, on the implementation level, we use our, that's good. I think that's red. We use our muscles. We use our muscles over time. So if you think about muscles, muscles are a physical resource. Time is a limited resource. So what you're doing when you're using your muscles over time is you are taking a physical resource times a limited resource, and then you're attempting to produce an unlimited result. It's not possible. Okay, are y'all tracking? And so what you have to do is you have to say, okay, so why does this not work? The implementation level is the level where people make the least amount of money. If you want to make more money, you have to level up. People say, I'm working hard. Yeah, but you're working hard on the wrong level. Right? It's not like how hard you work on your current level is not the question. The question is, how hard are you willing to work on yourself to get to the next level? Because on the lowest level of value, you're going to make somewhere between minimum wage and maybe $80,000 per year. Minimum wage if you're making tacos at 7-layer burritos at Taco Bell, $80,000 a year. Maybe if you're a mechanic working on a Rolls Royce or a Bentley or Mercedes or whatever. You're a high skilled laborer that works on premium products. So now you're making $80,000 a year, but you're still using your muscles over time. Now, some of us are going to think, well, that's not fair. Okay, well, you work on making life fair. I'm just going to work within the boundaries that life has already handed us. Okay, and I just recently had an event at a hotel in Clearwater, Florida, and so when we were at that event, one of the things that I noticed every time I go to a hotel is the hardest working people in the hotel are the housekeeping staff. But they're also the people who make the least amount of money. And we can oh, that's not fair. We need to figure out a way to make that better. And politicians are always going to lie and tell you they're going to solve income inequality, but they can't solve income inequality because income inequality doesn't exist in a vacuum. Income inequality, there are some shenanigans that go on. I'm not saying there are no shenanigans that go on in the upper echelons of society. I'm not saying that, but income inequality is largely a result of value creation inequality. So if you want to make more money, create more value. And oh, by the way, you don't need somebody to fix it for you. In fact, the reason you have the problem is because that's not just something you're supposed to go through, that's something you're supposed to grow through. And if you're willing to grow through the problems that you have, it can turn you into a person who no longer has that problem. Okay, there are no external forces that are stopping you. The forces that are stopping you are all inside of you. That's another conversation for a different day. $80,000 a year. So, what's the next level? Well, the next level is what I call unification. And on the unification level, we use our management skills to make money. Now, the reason we make more money, and by the way, people who use their management skills make a lot more money than people who do the thing themselves. In fact, these people who manage these people make more money than the people they manage. That's not fair. Okay, don't fix that right now. Fix it later. Right now, let's figure out how we can level up. So on this level, you're going to make using your management skills, and the reason you make so much more money is because here you get paid for your hours. Here you get paid for something called man hours. And the more people you have working for you, the more money you make. You got 100 people under you. What did J. Paul Getty say? J. Paul Getty say, I would rather make 1% of the efforts of 100 people than the 100% of my own efforts. Okay, so start thinking about leverage. When you have management skills, you're actually leveraging the work of other people. Okay, so on this level, management skills, you're going to make somewhere on the low end, you might make $60,000 a year. If you are a manager at Taco Bell, and you might make $250,000. You might make $250,000 if you're a manager at a Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 company like Lockheed Martin. You might work at Boeing or somewhere where a middle manager, you're going to make $250,000 a year. But if you make $250,000 a year at your job because of your management skills, the company that you work for, they want you to know they own you. That's not the same as them wanting you to know they own you. They want you to know they own you, right? And they're going to do everything in their power to show you that they know that they own you, okay? Well, what we got to do is we have to level up one more time, and when we level up, well, two more times actually. When we get up above this dotted line, this is where the fortunes start to be made. And so, like, if you're down here using your muscles over time, like, you have a couple of levels to ascend before you can even start thinking about making $10,000 a month. And you're going to see, this is going to, an hour, not a month. And you're going to see how this makes sense here in a minute. So what happens next is this level doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but it is. This is communication. Communication is, and by the way, the resource you use here is called your mouth, okay? When you, on the communication level, you're going to make on the low end 100 grand a year if you sell cars, or if you sell insurance, or you sell real estate. On the low end, you make 100,000 a year. But on the high end, it could be $100 million a year. So what do you mean $100 million a year? Well, if you're a screenwriter, you write scripts for movies, you might make $100 million a year. If you're a songwriter and you write songs, you might make, if you're a Beyonce or if you're a Taylor Swift, you might make $100 million, $200 million, $300 million a year. You're a Jay-Z. You might make hundreds of millions of dollars because you create a message with your mouth that moves the masses. You know how to have conversations that create cash flow. Now maybe you can't sing like Beyonce. Maybe you can't act like Denzel Washington. Maybe you can't direct movies like, I was going to say Martin Scorsese, but I don't even know if Martin Scorsese, I think he's the director. Anyway, Martin Scorsese, right? You may not be able to do any of that stuff, but guess what? Here's an arena you can step into today, using your mouth to make money. It's called sales. I don't like sales. Okay, cool. Most people don't. In fact, I would venture to guess that probably 95% of people don't like to sell. I want you to think about that. Somebody tell me, what is the alternative to selling? Buying or being sold. Okay, so think about that. 95% of the people don't like to sell, which means 95% of the people only like to buy. That makes it really, really good for the 5% of us who love to sell. By the way, come on over, jump on in, the water's fine. By the way, for those of you who don't like sales, I submit to you that perhaps you don't like sales because you had a bad experience with somebody who was, quote, in sales, but was terrible at sales. And here's what I mean when I say they were terrible at sales. They attempted to talk you into buying something you didn't want, didn't need, or couldn't afford, and then proceeded to attempt to pressure you to say yes when your answer was already no. That's not what I mean when I say sales. When I say sales, I mean helping people make a decision they already desire to make for their own reasons, not talking them into making a decision you desire them to make for your reasons. One of the reasons I'm so good at sales is because I'm not trying to get anybody to buy. I just recognize there are a lot of smart people out there in the world who would desire to have the results I can help them get, and they'd be willing to pay me for that. And so therefore, fortunately for me, I figured it out. I don't have to talk people into buying. Why? Because there are enough people out there who are already looking to buy what I'm already looking to sell. That's a game changer. Okay. So communication, you can start out in sales. You could become an author and sell books. I wrote a couple of books. In fact, I'm going to grab them just because I'm talking about it right now. I didn't think about it earlier. Okay, so back in frame. Okay, yeah. I wrote this book 19 years ago. This book makes me about $110,000 a year. I wrote it 19 years ago. It's called From the Trash Man to the Cash Man. If you buy it on Amazon, you might end up paying $1,100 for it. So I would recommend against that. Certainly over $100, because people buy them on my website and then they sell them on Amazon and people buy them. And I know they do because I was speaking at a conference. Y'all know who Alex and Layla Hormozi are, right? So I was speaking at their conference, at their Gym Lords conference one time. And I was telling them, I just found out people are selling my book on Amazon for like $300 and $160 and $60. And Layla says, I know, I just bought your book the other day for $60 off Amazon. I'm like, what? I would have given it to you, right? Anyway, she said, yeah, I bought it for my dad. And so this book, don't buy it on Amazon. If you want to buy it on trashmantocashman.com. Not that I'm trying to get you to buy one. Don't buy one. If you think I'm trying to sell you a book, don't buy one. How about that? This book I wrote 4 years ago. We sell $30,000 to $40,000 a month of this book. These two books together make us $500,000 a year for work I did a long time ago, right? So what are you saying? This is a message that I communicated. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about I took my time, I put this message in a book. You know, you sit there and you type, or you write, and then you have somebody, right? I wrote those, that represents work that I did many moons ago. But I'm still getting paid off of it every single solitary day. Okay, so communication. Well, what's the highest level of value? The highest level of value is imagination. And on this level, you use your mind and you use your money to make money. Now, here's what happens. You want to make $10,000 an hour? Here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to discern the level of value you're working on, and then you got a decision to make. Am I going to stay on the level I'm on? If you're down here, it's going to be very, very hard for you to make $10,000 an hour using your money, using your muscles over time. So maybe there's a better way. It's going to be very, very hard for you to make $10,000 an hour managing people. So what you have to do is you have to figure out how to create and convey a message that shows other people that you have value, and you have to figure out who those people are. So I'm going to use my mind. I'm going to use my mind to figure out, okay, who are the people that I'm going to serve? Right? So I use my imagination. So I gave y'all part of the outline. So discern, right? So then I'm going to use my imagination. If I'm going to create wealth, I'm going to discern what level of value I'm on, and then I'm going to use my imagination to contemplate. Not contemplate. Use my imagination, to contemplate who, it doesn't like that T, who I'm going to help, contemplate who I'm going to help and how am I going to help them. That's where it starts. You want to make $10,000 a month, an hour. You want to make $10,000 an hour? You got to figure out, you got to think about, you got to use your imagination. Okay, who has a problem? Start paying attention to other people's problems. Start paying attention to other people's pains. Start paying attention to what other people complain about. Start paying attention to what makes other people's lives uncomfortable. Start paying attention to people's faces. When they start frowning, okay, what's missing here? What's missing here? What's missing here? What could I create that would make their life better right now? And if you can figure out the answer to that, when you can contemplate who you're going to help and how you're going to help them, and the people you're going to help are people who have a big problem, and they have deep pockets, and it's a big pool of people, it's going to be really hard for you not to get rich. And see, your problem is, the challenge you're having financially right now is more than likely, if I can be so bold, and I don't mean this in a condescending way, so I want to say it with kindness in my voice, it's probably because if you're struggling financially right now, it's probably because the only person's problem you've ever really focused on attempting to solve is your own. And all of the money that you desire to have and don't have right now, it's in somebody else's pocket, bank account, purse, wallet, and if you solve a problem for them that they know they have, they will happily hand it over. That's all I'm saying. So start thinking about, who am I going to help? How am I going to help them? Who am I going to help? How am I going to help them? I've got a friend who used to be one of my clients. His business does pretty close to $30 million a year now. He teaches attorneys how to do marketing for their law firm. He teaches attorneys how to do marketing for their law firms. Now, guess what he's not? He's not an attorney. He was going to law school. He's like, I don't like this. But he's good at marketing. And so he started teaching attorneys. Why did he teach attorneys? Because they have big problems. What's the big problem? Okay, let me paint the picture for you. They went to school for 4 years and accumulated, let's just call it tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt. It's probably more, but let's call it tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt. Then they went to law school and acquired tens of thousands of dollars more debt. And then they started a law practice and acquired hundreds of thousands of dollars more debt. And now they went to school to learn how to become a lawyer, practice law, and pass the bar exam. Guess what they didn't learn? They didn't learn how to get clients to pay them for solving their legal problems. So the educational legal, the people who educate lawyers created this big hole in the market that lawyers didn't even know they had until after they passed the bar and borrowed money to start a practice. And they hung their shingle and nobody showed up. If you build it, they will come. That's great for movies, but in real life, it really doesn't work that way. And so what happened is you contemplate who you're going to help, how you're going to help them. If you can find people that have a big problem, and it's a big pool of people, and they have deep pockets, I'm telling you, $10,000 in an hour is not off the table. Well, I'm going to show you how. This is literally going to be a blueprint.